Greetings, family. On this Wednesday, the 15th, tax day, huh? Hope you got all your paperwork in order. You're not in a panic mode here on the 15th tax day. Just so much is going on in the world. My baby boomer compadres. Man, interesting. I just shared that I just had 80 years of living to celebrate on the 6th of this month. And there's some reckoning. There's a difference between being 79 and then being 80. You just step into a whole nother platitude of consciousness, of expectation. When you walk into a room and you are 80 years old, chances are you're going to be older than most of those in the room that populate that room. Hence, you're viewed accordingly. It's like the difference between 59 and 60. And between 39 and 40. Those thresholds, those benchmarks, decade by decade. My next platitude would be 90, maybe, if I'm so fortunate. Hence, what is it like to be 90? Oh, what do we do to ourselves? Someone said to me, oh, age ain't nothing but a number. Ain't nothing but a number. It's how you feel. All right. I contrast that with age is far more than a number. Life's experiences, expectations, and oftentimes the mind says it matters not, but your body says, hold on. There's a measure here. There is a measure here. I laughed about some things when I'd see some medication advertising bladder issues, in particular older men, which I'm one of them now. What happens to us now? I distinctly think about the ad that addresses a gentleman walking by a water fountain. This beautiful fountain out in a garden somewhere. And it instantly triggers a bladder reaction. Oh, I said, oh, does that really happen? And at that time, at my age, I said, I can't even relate to it. Can't even relate to that. But now I do. Now I do. Oh, I haven't surrendered to the medication because of the side effects are not that which I want to embrace. Yeah, the side effects of all the medications I find to be quite interesting. Having had the honor of caretaking for my dad the last few years of his life, who passed at 96. Oh, I'd be so blessed to be that long, have that longevity and be conscious and be physically able to move around. That would be the ultimate blessing. Too often we get to a certain age that we can't function well if we're blessed to live that long. So I'm 80, and I think about the urgencies of the moment, the urgencies that comes with living, you know. When you're 17, when you're 15, oh, you're going to get to be 30. You'll be there. You'll get to be 30 years old. I mean, that's an easy hill to climb, to be 30. Okay. And then you're on the threshold of 29 in your 30s as well. Okay. Gee, that was quick. Or maybe it wasn't. Because when you're 15 or younger, you're looking for 2 days, your birthday and Christmas possibly. Because there are two moments where family will celebrate you through gifts and the givings. And so time moves slowly because you're waiting for those 2 days. Just 2 days. Takes forever to come around. Then you reach that threshold where you are paying rent or mortgage or car payment or insurance or whatever on a monthly basis. Time begins to pick up the speed because it seems like every 30 days you're making this note. You're paying this note. So you're 30 years old. And you say, well, I should make it to 60. I mean, that's in the realm of possibilities. I know a lot of people I've heard get to be 60. Things are happening at 60 years old, You're starting to go to more memorial services. Wow. Okay. Because I often would think about my parents going to memorial services as a social gathering. I'd hear neighbors in their age category would go to a memorial service not knowing the honoree. But because they're in a age group of a generation, chances are they're going to know somebody there that they haven't seen in a while. So they'd show up. Very interesting. I thought it was rather peculiar. But now at 80, I realize what's happening. I'm going to more memorial services than I could ever imagine. Someone said to me, described it as, we're starting to really circle the drain. I thought that was an interesting way to put it. But that's the way it is. Okay, so you get to be 60 years old. 59, let's say. And you're looking at 60 in months. You say, well, gee, 60. Time is really starting to pick up. Pacing, it is like the decades are flying by. The years and the decades and the birthdays. The celebrations are just flying by. Oh, I just celebrated a birthday. Oh, yeah, no. Okay. We're doing this again. Okay. When you're 60, you say, wow, chances of me getting to be 120 are at best slim, like they say, slim to none. And most of us surrender to none. So we begin to take precautions. We think about life insurance and have I got my will together, and they create what we call the bucket list. Your bucket list, because time is starting to get very short. Okay, time moves on. Now you are what? 69. And it will happen quickly. It'll begin to happen so quickly at 69. And you're facing 70. Now, this is another threshold. Because when you enter the room at 70, you are going to be older than most of the people in that room. And as far as black men are concerned, you really are in an elite group. Or at least approaching an elite group. Because many of us haven't made it. Or we're in such bad shape. We're on walkers. And on a regimen of medications and so forth that everything becomes questionable. But there's some of us who still have taken care of ourselves, haven't medicated in so many ways, and haven't had so many Philly cheesesteaks, and haven't eaten a lot of fast foods, and have maintained a decent diet and exercise routine. Hence, we might be in some decent shape. Okay, but time is starting to fly now. And hopefully you've paid off your car, or you paid your mortgage off, and you're looking at grandchildren. So, wow, grandkids. Now, that's a real measure, grandkids. I have grandkids, so I'm told. And I put it like that because I have not been the most attentive parent and least grandparent. Because you know, your children, if you don't give them much attention, their grandchildren are going to reflect that. And I'm guilty. I'm very guilty of that. And I beg for their forgiveness. Please forgive me for not being there. But I'm here. Would love to see you. Moving right along. You're 79. And when you're 79, you're in an elite crew of people. As you know, you are about to step into a pool of a generation that are really beginning to circle that drain, as I have been informed. You're going to more memorial services than I could have ever planned for. You just lost a high school buddy. Just saw him a month ago. Laughing and joking. He was strutting around. Had a new shirt on. Was proud of himself. Had his shoes shine. Looking good. And now he's gone. I'll call his name Matthew Billy Wright. Loved that brother. We went to Douglas High School together. Class of 1964. Just saw Billy. Matthew, as he elevated his space, his majesty, the recognition of his professionalism to Matthew Wright. And I respect that. There's something to be said, your name, honoring your name. I say that because for many years I was known as, just to digress, they called me Joe Beasley. Joe Beasley. Hey, Joe Beasley. I met somebody who thought my first name was Joe Beasley. Funny. Thought that was my name, Joe Beasley. But having traveled on the continent of Africa, in particular Ethiopia, spent a few months there. And just to digress for a moment, please bear with me. Names are very important in other parts of the world because oftentimes it's an indication of when you were born and what the circumstances were, where the moon was, or whether your mom was in a lot of labor, whether you were born at night, daytime, lots of things by the river. Lots of things indicate what your name is given, what name is given. So when I introduce myself, I would say my name is Joe. So that's how it was. I'm Joe. Didn't even say Beasley. Beasley. And then later on, the person would find out my name was Joseph Beasley. And it seemingly, the reaction was I was being very deceptive and not truthful about who I was. So I had to make some adjustments. And that adjustment was I had to give them my full name. So I went to calling myself while on the continent, referring to my full name. My name is Joseph Andrew Beasley Jr. But my friends call me Joe. Now that made sense to the culture that I was embedded with. And they sincerely appreciated the difference because oftentimes when they introduced themselves to me, they gave me the full throttle name. My name is Abdul Shabib Tesfaye, blah, 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 blah. But my friends call me Fred. Whatever, Hence, when I came back from the continent, after having got into that rhythm of using my full name, I continued to do that. Because I'd never used Joseph. That was my dad. That was the definitive difference between when my mother called us. When she said Joseph, that was my dad. I was Joe, or even Little Joe. So that is what I was used to. But coming back from the continent, I was using my full-blown name. First, middle, last, and junior. And it was very interesting. A friend told me, no one's going to call you Joseph. It's too regal, it's too biblical, it's too significant in the messaging in the Bible of Joseph, who he was, and some people are just not going to go there. And I discovered that. Some people would refer to me as Beasley rather than Joseph. But I would introduce myself as Joseph. And once I was at a social event, and there was a gentleman there who introduced himself as Joe. And I said to him, well, what do your friends call you? And he kind of looked at me in a perplexed way. Joe. Okay. And so I introduced myself. I'm Joseph, but my friends do call me Joe. But the introduction of Joseph it gave me a presence that was very psychological. So if I went on some sort of a formal interview where I was selling my services, I would introduce myself as Joseph Andrew Beasley Jr. And these are my services. And if the person whom I was soliciting work from decided to call me Joe, well then they decided to break the barrier between the formal and the informal. So maybe I'd put my feet up on their desk or just refer to them by their nickname. So it was very interesting. Now, there are people whom I have met, in particular since moving back to Baltimore in 2002, I think it was, 2002. And I continue to use the full name Joseph Andrew Beasley Jr., particularly Joseph. And there are people who are used to hearing that, Joseph. And I've become accustomed to being called Joseph. Yet, Joe's cool. Being referred to as Joe. But if I hear Joe Beasley, I know that's back from like high school days or even before. Joe Beasley. They kind of run together. But also I've discovered that there are other Joe Beasleys in the world. So to definitively separate myself from the other Joe Beasleys, I use Joseph Andrew Beasley Jr. And that's also part of the maturation process of being 80. So my baby boomer people, I appeal to your sense of urgency because you've lived and experienced. You're knowledgeable about where we are and what needs to be done to change the paradigm of our people. Because I know we need remedial help. Many of the baby boomers that I know aspired. You know, we used to see Leave It to Beaver and Father's Knows Best, The White Picket Fence. And we did a flight from our neighborhoods in pursuit of the statistical measure of success, the white picket fence, the 2-car garage, and the 2.5 children, leaving behind those who needed us most. So I implore you, my baby boomer peers, there's urgency. Reach back. Reach back into those communities that need you. Whether it's through a church or through some organization. And lend your support of wisdom. Your support of wisdom. Please. Ashe.